All right, so I stole some pictures off the internet, so I'll be going to
Copyright infringement.
internet jail.
That's right.
Won't be the first time.
Letter in the mail.
All right, let's see. Talking about manifold intake pipes. I said maybe exposed pipes. This is the.
Exposed pipes.
This is really. I like this. Whoever I stole this website picture from, but I've never seen a crankshaft that looks like that, or an oil sump that looks like that. So it's pretty cool. Air box, air filter, air box, going up to the carburetor. See how this one hangs down really low and it's not really warmed up by that oil back there. Pipes are exposed. All right. Then we have, this is the, like my engine right there. There's a carburetor way down there.
Yes.
So that would not have any sort of heat really helping it out at all. Got to come up through here. And then all the pipes come up. And then up here, see that little right there?
Mm-hmm.
It's called a balance tube.
That's the balance pressure on both sides.
Balance both sides.
Mm.
So got the balance tube. So you got all the clamps. This is not an easy system to deal with. These hoses are pretty hard to move once they've set for a while. But anyway, so that's your intake for Continental. And then Lycoming, which you're well familiar with because you built one. The pipes go through into the oil sump, through the oil sump and down. So let's see. According to Lycoming, there are some real advantages to this. Of course. Let me see.
You know, this thing just sucks.
May run through oil sump, like the Lycoming. The Lycoming says, well, this is actually our great design. Maybe they did it because they don't know anymore because whoever designed it, they're long gone. Maybe it because the fuel air mixture, and if you've played with the ground power unit and put your hand on that pipe, what's that pipe do? It's really cold. So maybe it slightly cools the oil. And that's why they did it. Or maybe because at the same time, if you cool the oil, it has to warms the fuel air mixture slightly for better atomization. I don't know about that one.
Not that far, no.
Or maybe it was design was just due to room constraints. In other words, they just didn't have enough room, and that's how it worked.
Will you get
So,
more vapor lock, do you think, since it goes to the sump?
you can't get vapor lock in that area. You only get vapor lock in the fuel line. It's not a fuel line. Some systems, or some engines, I should say engines. I don't know why I put systems. Some engines use balanced intake systems. And that will provide better, say more uniform fuel air mix, 2 cylinders. And a balanced system would look something like that. So that's a Lycoming. So note the difference. Comes out, makes a straight run up. And for those of you that have put your tubes on, you know that are all 4 of these the same part number?
No.
They are not.
2 are.
2 are. Some are short, some are long. So they're not balanced. That's what a balanced one looked like. They're different part numbers because they go to different spaces, but you notice how
Equal length, yeah.
they're equal length. They make turns and runs they don't need to, so that they're the exact same length. So when you see something strange like that, like, oh, that's just a balanced intake tube system. What kind of engine is this?
Like
Well, first of all, it's a 390. It says right there. But it's what kind of fuel system?
injection.
Fuel injected. There's your servo down there. That's how it's going to sit. What are these little tubes right there? Impact tubes. What's that lever right there? Mixture. This is the flow divider. Okay. Let's see what else I got here.
Tarantula poison. Different species.
F is the heater. We'll call it the heater. Because we talked about carb heat. Where do we get the heater from? Well, I just showed you. It is heater for the carb heat. Where does it come from? Yep, uses heat from exhaust muff. Does not use exhaust. You can take it outside if it's really important. Huh? He's got an important text. So I told you it's like the one thing that's the most it's the most distracting thing there is to me if people sit here and text. Let's see. What happens when carb heat is applied?
Reduction of power.
There is a loss of power. Why is there a loss of power? Lower density air. Air is higher density altitude, lower density. Yes, the air is not as dense. It's like you're at a higher altitude.
High amount of low density air.
What happens if you have carburetor ice and you pull it on? It's going to run worse. So if you have ice and you pull on the carb heat,
So turn it off.
yeah, turn that. I don't like that. So if you have ice and you pull on carb heat, it's going to get a lot worse.
Yes.
And it's going to get a little bit better. And then when you push it in, it's going to get all the way better. Okay.
Is it just seconds, or like it runs rough, or like minutes?
I've never had carb ice in flight. I've had it on the ground. And honestly, it didn't. When you start noticing that your RPM starts to go down, you just pull it on. It's just, I don't know, it didn't get that much worse. I never, yeah. People make it sound like it's a big deal, but I don't know if it is that much of a big deal. Although, huh?
As long as you catch it.
Yeah, but the one customer I did have who, called and said that, this whole airplane quit in flight. Well, yeah, he had carb ice, and he couldn't tell me what happened either because he never pulled the carb heat on. I mean, he did at short final. So, let's see. We have our air ducting. All right, so we looked at that already. Got our orange ducting that goes everywhere. It is called scat tube or skeet tube. I think this is scat, and skeet has got another liner on the inside. I don't like that stuff with the liner on the inside. There's a trick to putting this stuff on. It's easier just to show somebody just to tell, but how you have to cut this and stuff. I will tell you that there are some really sick individuals in this world. Do not just Google scat tube. You will get some things that you do not want to, you will not unsee. So, yes, you want to look this stuff up. The airplane, tubing, orange, scat. I always buy the orange stuff. I know there is black stuff. There was the old black stuff that Cessna would use, which will ruin your airplane. So if I see black stuff in an airplane, I tell the customer, man, you got to get that out of there. It will destroy the airplane. This, I believe, is maybe it's stainless, or it's just the coating on this is more of a rubberized. This stuff down here, the black stuff, the old black stuff, was like some sort of paper or something. I don't know. It wasn't really rubber, and it disintegrates, and it leaves the steel spring inside, then rubs up against the aluminum of the aircraft and causes dissimilar metal corrosion really well. There's something between the two that just really, it loves it. And it will eat up an airplane, so it can get really bad. So we got the tube. That stuff's pretty cheap. It's about carb ice. I'll let Larry talk about carb ice. Good. And I can just move on. What air temperature can you get ice?
30 to 40 degrees.
Yeah, you can get all the way up to 100 degrees according to the Q&A books. All right. Types of ice. What kind of ice do we have? Impact, evaporation, and throttle. So, okay. All right. Let's talk about exhaust systems. No, this just starts it all over again. So there's no H. It's just exhaust systems. It's a whole new thing now. This is another one of those things like the B-nuts on hoses, where if you turn your back on a hose without tightening it, you'll kill somebody. Exhaust systems are killing people left and right. They're pretty bad. And who's to blame? Mostly mechanics. We're not paying attention to them. When you're out, I've told you this before, when you're out at the airport, especially now that the Cessna 172s have gone to fuel injection, you can always hear the students out there cranking, bang, then it runs. Because you got to get a nice explosion in the exhaust. Because they overprimed it, it ran down the exhaust, and then as soon as it lights off, the engine does, and the hot exhaust comes out, then it explodes in the. And so nobody ever stops to get out and go, I wonder if that was a problem. It's like, well, it's running. Finally got it running. Don't shut it off now. Just go do our flight. It's the worst that could happen. But the FAA was, and you should be going to FAAsafety.gov, and you should have your account, and you should be watching the videos. I watch almost all of them. They're very, very well done. They always have their core course every year, like, hey, this is what we're really trying to talk about this year and really stress. Well, if you're starting now, you should go back and look at all the core courses because that's what they stressed each year. And they've really been talking a lot about exhaust the last couple of years because it's just so neglected. And I don't think that a lot of schools talk about it because, again, it's just kind of a boring thing. You bolt it to the bottom of the engine and what's to know? But there's really so much to know and to pay attention. They're a little difficult to inspect sometimes, so people get lazy. When I was at the Bonanza School, they asked the question, how many people here pressurize your exhaust systems on every annual? It's like 2 of us raised our hand. I'm one of only 2. I pressurize exhaust on every annual. It's so simple to do. A lot of people take a vacuum cleaner and just take the exhaust off the vacuum and just plug it into the exhaust. That's enough pressure, and then soap it and see what it does. I don't like that, and I even brought it up. I said, do you have a dedicated vacuum for that? He goes, no, we just use the one we just
Shop back.
shop vac. And I'm like, don't you ever out blowing particles up in the engine? He goes, I never thought about that.
Change filters.
Huh?
Change filters.
Yeah, sometimes it's even worse, and it really blows dirt. So I just use our shop air, and I always just have somebody roll up a rag and shove it in the exhaust, and then shove the air jet up in there and just squeeze it. It's rag. It's just going to come back. It's not that much of a pressure because you just use a rag to seal it. Anyway, soap everything up, and you're going to look for cracks.
Would you ever smoke it?
I haven't. No.
I don't know if that would be a thing.
I think it could be. How would you?
I have a little smoker that works great. I mean, I use it for finding intake leaks in cars and stuff. It's like a little mini smoke machine.
I know. I was trying to think how you do it with exhaust though.
Well, you just do the same thing, put it in there and put a rag.
Blow it and let it smoke its way out.
Its way
Yeah.
out.
That'd be kind of cool.
Would be.
All right, so what is exhaust system? It's defined as, let's see, a scavenging system that collects and disposes, of high temperature. How high temp?
1400.
Yeah, or higher.
15,
Yeah, depends on. So it's probably running better than 1700 degrees Fahrenheit or higher up near the head. High temp and poisonous gases. All right, so typically speaking, your exhaust gas system, I'll just put EX for exhaust. What's in our exhaust gases that we care about? Yeah, contains, among other things, CO, which is carbon monoxide, which is a poison. And that's the part that I would be concerned about. And where to go here? Are hot and can cause a fire. I'd rather have CO poisoning than fire poisoning, I'll tell you right now. But I don't want either. What's my material? Stainless. Let me see. So it's going to be usually some sort of corrosion resistant steel. Usually. Some sort of corrosion resistant steel. I have seen some that are like a mild steel, maybe a steel with a coating. Some older planes, your Rocket Chiefs. I'm thinking of maybe Cubs. Some of the really old, like hand prop type aircraft would have that. Or we'll have stainless. STAINLE, stainless. Maybe it's a nickel or Manel, which is a nickel copper. And possibly ceramic coated.
Would that be an STC to get that coated? Like if you
I think it comes, some exhaust systems come with it. I don't know if
But
it'd
you
be an
can't
STC.
just take your exhaust and
No, you
jet
can't just
coated.
take it and have it coated. So you can weld exhaust systems. The problem with it is you don't always know the base metal. You know, even if it is a stainless steel, like, okay, it's confirmed stainless steel. There's a couple of different versions of stainless that they use, and if you're not using the right filler rod, well, now you're kind of ruined it. Not to mention, I mean, I used to weld a lot of exhaust systems. I won't do it anymore. I'm like, nah. It's just one of those things you kind of learn, like, that's not a good idea. I have a customer right now who, let me see if I have a picture. What a picture of. Yeah, this picture kind of works. Like you see this little ring right there? Okay, it cracked, and so that ring now slides back and forth. It cracked all the way around, both sides. And so that's the part where that shroud bolts to. So it's really just a support for the shroud. So if you take that little ring and you slide it down and you look at it, the exhaust is still completely intact. And so you think about it, and the way the welds are set up, it would be real easy just to go and just weld a little bead, re-weld what was there, and it's not in the base metal. It's the base metal. It's not into the muffler itself. So, okay, on one side there's like, well, you're not getting carbon monoxide. You have no danger there. Yeah.
Would that be like a major repair or a minor repair? If you were to
Minor.
weld it?
Minor. Yeah.
Are you allowed to paint them?
You wouldn't want to. That paint's, it's
No,
1700 degrees.
exhaust paint.
Yeah, I don't think that can handle 700 degrees.
Okay. I thought the HT paint like that.
You're so happy back here. What are we doing? Yeah. You guys done for the night? Sure?
I will be at 9:20.
All right, so back to this.
We're gonna need an intermission beat.
Huh?
We're gonna need an intermission beat.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, so the problem is I could weld that on there. But I called somebody who knows a lot more about exhaust welding than I do. There's a really great welder up here, Lori Air. And I sent him a picture, and I'm like, hey, just run a bead on this, right? And he's like, no. He said, you got to really think about what you're doing here. And this is somebody who's certified to weld aircraft stuff, so he's got an FAA approval to do it, so I trust him. And he's like, first of all, you got to consider what the base metal is, make sure you're getting the right filler. We talked about that. Second, he says, you got contamination from exhaust products on there, because you just do. Even though it's outside, you're going to get that. And third, he said, if you know how it's put together, it was put together as an assembly. You got to take the end plate off and weld that all together. And then, now you've got the whole inners exposed, and then weld that on. So it's actually going to be quite an expensive repair. So it's like, no, we're not doing that.
Well,
Yeah.
you gotta heat that up and burn the carbon out of it, so it's gonna be prone to cracking.
And prone to cracking. And of course, the story gets worse because I explained to my customer, I could buy, you have 1,000 hours on this, and it's Piper. And Piper says, hey, you really probably shouldn't use our exhaust systems past 1,000 hours. I'm like, well, you got more than 1,000 hours. So I can either send it to this guy and he's going to weld it, but he's got to weld both ends. He's got to take both ends off. He's got to do all this work. It's about $900. Or I can buy you a brand new one for $1,100. And what does he say?
900?
I'll take the 900.
Really?
I said,
That's
let me
zero
rephrase
cents.
this. You're getting a new exhaust.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Only 200 more.
yeah. And it'll crack next year. I was like, but you said 1,000 hours. So it's going to crack next year and you got to pay another 900.
Yep.
You're making a bad choice here. So how about we just,
Customer's always right.
nope, they're not.
That is not.
Not when it is my license. They're not always right. I know, I thought about that in my head. I'm like, customer's always right. And I'm like, no.
In the auto industry. It's
No.
A little different.
Yeah.
All right.
If you don't wanna do
Service is
something-
even more so in aviation.
Yeah?
If you don't want to do something because it like jeopardizes your license, do you just reject the service then? As mechanic?
I can because it's my shop.
Okay.
But if you're working for somebody else,
Yeah.
like, there'd be another story if, it almost wouldn't be. If one of my mechanics came to me and said, hey, I don't feel comfortable doing this at all, man, I would sit down and be like, whoa. I would question my thought process. So, although I did have a mechanic today called up and said, I think this project's too difficult for me. And I was really impressed with him. So we had a long talk about why, and I was like, wow, you're right, man. That's a big project. So, yeah.
So in those sort of situations, would you make like a logbook entry for the customer to just say that you have a paper trail of, reviewing this issue, and you decide to reject it in case the person was like, all right, it's still airworthy in my opinion, and they go and fly.
Okay, so because those ends are broken, it's not airworthy.
Right.
So I'm not signing it off. And it's part of an annual, so he's not going to get his annual signature.
Is there like a paper trail that you can verify that you looked this over, you keep it in there living, and then in case the customer goes and does a pilot thing.
You have to be careful. So let's just say that I was asked to change a tire. That's a favorite one to start with. And I looked up and saw, oh, your exhaust is cracked. That's, in a way, it's none of my business.
It's yours.
I mean, it is. I'm there for safety. So I will make a logbook entry that says, change tire. And I will sign it off. And I would obviously call the customer, talk about the exhaust. And he said, yeah, it's fine. I don't mind flying around with a broken exhaust. I only ask you to fix the tire. When they came to pick up the airplane, I would ask them to sign a document. I would make it up on Word or something like that. Just says, hey, we're just warning you that you have a bad exhaust system. We highly recommend you change it. And please sign this. And they would sign it. And then that'd be the end of it. Because I was not working on anything.
So there's a way to
Yeah.
cover yourself.
Yeah. Because that's not what I was asked to work on. But in this case, I was asked to do an annual inspection. Now it's my business. It's 100% my business. That's what I was hired to do an annual inspection. So it's not airworthy, and I will not sign it off. But I'm always nice. I'm like, hey, you're not a victim here. I'm not holding you hostage. I will gladly do everything on your airplane. I will even put your broken exhaust system back on. I'm just going to write a log entry that says, I have inspected this aircraft and determined it to be in unairworthy condition, and a list of discrepancies has been given to the owner. And I will write a list of discrepancies on a Word document. It does not go in the logbooks. It says broken exhaust system. And he can take this over and he can go to his favorite AMP and go, I will buy you a Big Mac if you sign my logbook saying discrepancies have been. And then you could look at it and go, ain't nothing wrong with that exhaust. You could sign it off. and he's good to go.
Have a Big Mac with it.
Isn't that a weird thing? And you have a Big Mac to boot.
Yep.
Do you like Big Macs? I don't know. Maybe you don't like Big Macs. She wouldn't do it for that. She's more of a Whopper girl. I don't know. Wendy's or
Char broil.
something. That's right. Double bacon Western cheeseburger.
I don't even know what McDonald's
All right.
microwave.
So what's happening with these exhaust systems? We'll just kind of get down this route since we're already on it. Is all right. So in the 1 year that I've had my shop open now, I have found far too many exhaust systems broken, and not like wow, that's a good. How did you see that little crack? It is like huge. It's like, how is this thing even staying on the airplane? Kind of cracks, and people are like, whatever. So you got to watch those, because we talked about that, and that talked about the pilot who crashed. He had carbon monoxide poisoning. It sneaks up on you, apparently. I've never had it, thankfully. I always thought that I would notice it, but having listened to podcasts and stuff, pilots who know what they're looking for, your judgment starts going out, and then before you know it, you're like, I don't have carbon monoxide poisoning.
Gaslight yourself out of it.
The what?
Kind of like gaslight yourself.
It's exactly, yeah, it's
Right,
what it
I didn't have
does.
coffee, so I have a headache because of that. Or
So in some ways, that's like best case scenario is you're going to get carbon monoxide poisoning. Worst case scenario, let me see.
Jesus Christ.
Worst case scenario is you don't have a chance. You have a blowtorch goes off in your aircraft, and it blows a hole through a fuel line, and the fuel line erupts, and you have a fire. And that's from these are V clamps, something that was just ignored for years. I hate V clamps with a passion, but almost every turbocharged engine has these V clamps like crazy on them. And the name it's called a V clamp because it's got a V in it. So there's a V down here somewhere. I don't know, I can't really see it on this one, but it's got a V. And so the exhaust system comes together with the flange. Another one comes together with the flange. And the V goes all the way around and grabs those flanges and holds them together. And what's happening is they're cracking. So they got all these little spot welds around them. These spot welds crack. And so they're now life-limited parts. There was a period of time where they decided to make them life-limited and nobody was getting them and all these airplanes were grounded. To put them on, you have to do, it's kind of a very crazy hard inspection to actually inspect them. But you have to look for flat spots, cracks, how they close. And then when you put them on, there's an entire procedure for putting them on. So you have a torque and you put them on and you torque it. Then you take a rubber mallet, you beat the exhaust. You just, well, not hard, but you don't want to dent it. But you smack the exhaust and you tap, 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 torque it again. Hit the exhaust. And you keep doing that until you can't torque it anymore. Then you take it out and you run it and let it cool down and torque it. And you do that until you can't torque it anymore.
Oh, geez.
It takes a long time to put them on, to do them right. Because when you don't and they come apart, that's what happens. Because these are on turbocharged engines. So the exhaust has got a lot of back pressure and it's even hotter. So, yeah, something,
What would you replace those with?
V-clamps. You replace them with the same thing. They have not come up with something better yet that I'm aware of. Because exhaust systems have to expand and contract. You cannot have a single piece exhaust. Which is crazy, like on your cars, right? We do. We've got header, I don't, but you have headers that...
What is the closest to be?
That was perfect.
Not a Volkswagen.
From the heart.
Sorry, I make fun of the other instructor because he's got the little sign on his car.
I remember
So
that.
like, that's the Tesla.
He never
right
does it
now?
back. He's probably got that on there to keep people from vandalizing.
I know. All right, so the exhaust system has to move. So on our cars, I guess the block just doesn't move enough, right? Because it's one block. But in our airplanes, if we go back and think about this, we've got all these cylinders hanging on there. Cylinders. The cylinders are going to expand and contract, but they get to move this way, right? They're going to move this way and all kinds of different ways. And so that is going to cause this intakes here, not exhaust, but cylinders are going to move around. So these have to move around. So like if we look down here, there's a ball joint there. So they just have some bolts with some springs on them. So it's not bolted solid. You have a spring and you tighten it up until the spring compresses a certain point. So that muff can move around a little bit. What else we got? I don't know. That's why it cracks right here, because all these come together. Some systems don't have a lot of room for expansion, and what happens when they crack? Like this one. There's no room for expansion there. So where's it going to crack? Right in here. And it will. Eventually, that's exactly what's going to happen, because there's no room for expansion or contraction. So it is going to break. This is the old-timey kind of mild steel one right here. It just has a muff over it, but all of this is one-piece steel. It's going to crack. The good thing is it's not attached to the other side. When you get into the airplanes that attach to the other side, then they tend to crack a lot faster and a lot easier, and they usually have some sort of slip joint like this. So where's my slip joint? Don't really see it. Doesn't have it. Radials. And you're talking about expanding and contracting all different kind of dimensions. These things, when they go on, are sloppy loose. If you go up to a radial that is cold and grab the exhaust and try and move it, it's bolted solid to the cylinder, but these joints are incredibly loose. And they're allowed to be, because there's no cowling. So you don't have that risk right there. But get the airplane nice and hot, and if you go up and you grab onto it, you'll burn your hands. So don't do that. Idiots. So they tighten up when they get hot.
Get your fire protective gear.
Yeah. Let's see here. E-plans, okay.
I don't think so either.
All right, so we had two materials. We see no weld repair. 3, we had systems. Different types of systems. Really, there's you can lump everything up in 2 types of systems. Really, I mean, I can. We can call it the short stack. I'm not a pancake guy. Used on non-turbo, low horsepower engines. Okay, and that's going back to this. I would call that a short stack, especially this one down here. It's pretty small. This one is just, I've seen short stacks in. The test cell that I used, we only used stacks are about that long in our engines. Oh God, were the engines loud. No mufflers or anything. So I call it the short stack, or we could call it a collector system. Where it's going to collect pretty much everything into somewhat of a central location and then out. Yeah, like what we were using on our test cell. It's kind of a collector system. All 4 go into one muffler. And a lot of times those mufflers aren't anything more than just a can. There's nothing inside some of them. Some of them have flame arresters, spark arresters. I think Larry's going to talk. No, I think I do that. So you have your exhaust. Let me see. The holes in the end. You'll have flame cones in it. Just a bunch of holes in them. Oops, then you got to have the exhaust coming out. Unfortunate thing is these often break because you have a bunch of holes drilled on it, and if they fall over that thing right there, engine quits. So part of the inspections, you get in there to make sure that all your flame cones are in good shape. So collector system, it depends on what type we're talking about. Like we can talk about the type used on radials. That's one type. This particular one uses slip joints. That are loose. When cold. That keeps them from cracking. This keeps exhaust from cracking. As As engine expands or contracts from heat or cold.
How long do those normally last then if they're
You know, I was thinking, I was writing that, how many times I've seen a radial engine cracked, and I worked on a fair amount of radial engines, Stearmans and stuff. I didn't see a problem.
really?
Yeah, they seem to last a long time.
Is it clear metal?
Somebody said, I was talking, actually it was the guy who was complaining about his exhaust. He said the reason why he wanted his old stuff welded is because he read an article that the old stuff used better metal. So I'm like, I don't know, better, thicker metals. I think it's just under less pressure. Radial engines tend to turn slower. No, that's not true. They'll
Could
turn
they
the
do
same speed,
something like
but
that for other planes then?
What's that?
Couldn't they do something like that for our like?
I think it's
other
just the
engines
nature
and
of the way it is. You know, you think about a radial engine, some of them put the exhaust on the front, so it's air cooled right away. In the back, they're bigger pipes, less pressure on them, a shorter run to get out because there's usually no cowling. Then you think about the newer engines. I mean, they're just running hot. It's tightly cowled.
Yeah.
There's no airflow across them, or
I
not
gotcha.
much. So,
Yeah.
you know, I think all these things contribute.
For Archers, their air intakes are just like this big.
It's crazy. They're
No.
tiny.
The new Archers,
Let me see. I'll put this here. Install exhaust slip joints with C5A. Remember what C5A is? That's not the explosive stuff.
Wasn't that the
Anti-seize. Anti-seize. And periodically lubricate with mouse milk. I knew you were going to ask. Is it?
No, I'm pretty sure you mentioned.
You're gonna say, what is mouse milk? And so I guess I have to fast forward. With mouse milk, and that's how you, that's how you get it.
Oh! Did you not see that?
No, I was thinking about how you're like,
You gonna go into my head?
Zooms in on it.
Mice there.
They don't look happy.
Follow the expression.
Yeah, I know, they're like bummed out.
reminds me
That guy's happy. He's got milk. He's like,
Just
Well, he's not going to get killed.
this looks like something from The Simpsons. It's got to be. I don't know.
Yeah.
looks like the animation, doesn't it?
Now, mouse milk is your go-to product for lubricating exhaust systems. It's your exhaust lube. All right.
Why does it think it has 4 in the back?
Well, that's when they're done. You know, they start pink, and then you milk them till they turn white.
So you know they're attached. They'll turn white.
All right, so used on radials. You're also going to use on higher horsepower engines. Like how high horsepower? Like 150 horse, like not very high, or even lower. And definitely, if you're going to have a turbo engine, you got to have a collector, because you got to collect it all and use it. All right. I would be remiss if I didn't at least talk about some maintenance. Of exhaust systems, let me see. Exhaust failure is a potentially life-threatening event. All right, hot exhaust gases get into the cockpit and kill people. Hot gases leaking can cause a fire. We already talked about that, so I don't have to write it. as much as possible, you always open up the shrouds. They're a pain in the butt to get to. They're difficult to work with. You can't see very well. You got to get in with the mirror and a flashlight, but you got to do it. So I would say inspect under shrouds at least every 100 hours. Or annual, whichever comes first. Some systems require, some systems are every 25 hours. Yeah. So you're like half oil change intervals. Let's see, check with I'll use the word compressed. At about 2 psi. You don't want to explode the. You're not doing a pressure test, but shop air 2 psi and soap. And soap to look for cracks. Which doesn't always work. Sometimes cracks are so big that they don't soap. The soap doesn't bridge the gap, so you got to be careful if you're just soaping blindly. Sometimes it doesn't work. But there should always be some soap bubbles. There's usually a slip joint somewhere, some sort of joint. That's like I always call proof of concept. So I always want to soap that and make sure I get bubbles out of the places or where EGT probes go in. You should get a couple bubbles there. If you get bubbles there, you know you got good soap, you got good pressure, and I can test the rest of it. Obviously inspect welds. Inspect welds and clamping. I don't know where I got this. Every cowling removal. Every time we have a customer's plane in to check or do oil changes, I get down there and check their exhaust, at least visually. I don't do a pressure test. It's just a courtesy look. You got to check those internal baffles. The flame arrestor. Baffle failure can block the exhaust opening, and shut down the engine. We talked about the V-band clamps. If I had anything to say about V-band clamps, I'd say don't mess with them unless you know exactly what you're doing and have all the documentation. Every time I do one, I get out all the documentation. I don't do it by memory. I read it and make sure I do it step by step. Don't forget to use your, never use galvanized or zinc tools. I don't know where you'd find a galvanized or zinc tool.
What's the reason behind?
Or pencil. Can't use pencil.
Trying not using galvanizing zinc?
It does something with the base metal and causes it to weaken in that spot. Yeah. All right, so I guess tomorrow we can start talking about some installation. Installation. All right, good place to stop.